Massa, what is Trump doing? Let us reduce it to the barest minimum. You see, if you don't produce enough, you can't sell enough. And if you can't sell enough, there will be a deficit, a trade deficit between you and your trading partners. Now, Trump is saying that we are not producing enough, and therefore we are not selling enough. For us as the United States of America, the way to do it is to increase the prices of our imports, so that the industry which has moved out of the United States of America can come back to the United States of America, create employment, and so on, enable us to produce enough so that we can become competitive.
So you can avoid paying the tariffs.
So that we can become competitive.
Yes.
This is what Trump is doing. In any case, if you look at the U.S. economy today as it is, look, this is just fiction. This is an Alice in Wonderland story. There is no way that companies which have departed the United States of America and gone to China, Taiwan and other places can come back, at least not for the next 25 years.
Yes.
Not for the next 25 years. You understand? One, because the basic infrastructure in the United States is rotten. The U.S. needs to reconstruct its infrastructure completely. That's one. Cost of production in the U.S. is so heavy, so high, that no business person with any gray matter in the head, would want to use the U.S. as a production base. So these are internal problems of the United States of America that Trump is intending to export. What Trump is just doing is that he's exporting America's problems
to everybody.
To everybody.
Yeah.
You bear the brunt of our problems. And hey, we'll make America great again. It doesn't work that way. And it's important to note that economists in the United States of America, and some of them absolutely right-wing and so on, have come to say that this is not going to work. You are punishing the world for nothing. Now, what should be Ghana's reaction? What should be Ghana's reaction? Look, Africa has 60%, not 10, not 20, 60% of the world's arable lands. That's a major asset when it comes to food production, agriculture. 60% of the world's arable land is in Africa. Our weather conditions, we don't have winter. For most of Africa, we don't have winter, we don't have autumn, we don't have any of those funny seasons.
All year round.
We can farm all year round and so on. So this is the time we expect our leadership to sit down within the framework of the African Union to plan, to think, and to take advantage of the opportunities available to us in order to grow and to trade with ourselves and so on. This is the solution.
Right.
The solution is not going to meet with the U.S. ambassador to come and tell us why the U.S. did it. Everybody knows why the U.S. did it. In any case, why is the U.S. exempting oil and gas?
Because that's in their interest. That's what they need.
Because they're pursuing their interest.
Yeah.
You understand? You know what Canada did? Canada did something which is most brilliant. Canada supplies electricity to cities like New York, New Jersey, Minneapolis, and so on. Canada says that if Trump doesn't stop what he's doing, it has imposed tariffs on electricity exports to the U.S.
Right.
You understand? Which is going to make electricity more expensive for people who live in New York and about 5 other cities and so on. And Canada has warned that if the U.S. continues to escalate, it will cut off power supply to major cities in the United States.
They said we're going to cut off access to Alaska.
Exactly. They're going to cut it off.
Yeah.
You understand? Now, you have to understand the mentality of Donald Trump. This is the guy who becomes president and declares that the Panama Canal now belongs to the United States of America.
Yes.
The guy becomes president and he says, I'm taking over Greenland. I'm buying Greenland. He's buying Greenland. He becomes president and he says, well, I want to buy the whole of the Gaza Strip.
And we can enter resource.
and take out 2.5 million people so that I can build hotels and restaurants and casinos, in the Gaza Strip. This is a guy who becomes president and he says, listen, I want Canada as the 51st state
of America.
in the United States of America. And so, how do you deal with a guy like this? You deal with a guy like this by inviting his representative in Accra to a meeting to repeat his gibberish. I don't understand what is happening.
Yeah.
So it is time for us to adopt a multilateral approach.
Yeah.
And that multilateral approach ought to be Africa-centered. It ought to be within the remit of Pan-Africanism as defined by the Manchester Conference in 1945.
Yeah.
That's the way to move. You understand? We've got to come back and sit down and look at what opportunities are available to us in order to overcome this. And one of the biggest opportunities available to us is the Belt and Road Initiative from China.
Yes.
The Belt and Road Initiative from China. In fact, it has far-reaching consequences for economic development than AGWA. What is AGWA? Compared to the Belt and Road Initiative from China.
Okay.
You understand? What are we going to do with BRICS? I have many problems with BRICS. Let me be honest with you, I have many problems with BRICS. I mean, a lot of the things that BRICS is doing don't make sense. You understand? But then we can work with the BRICS countries in order to reshape BRICS to serve our interests. And one of the things that I think doesn't make sense about BRICS is simply the fact that now, if you want a facility from the BRICS facility, BRICS Bank, if you want a facility from the BRICS Bank, you need an IMF approval. It doesn't make sense. We are running away from the IMF because the IMF has become inimical to our development. The BRICS establishes a bank which is supposed to operate as an alternative to the IMF, which we believe should have operated as an alternative to the IMF, and we are told that to get a facility from the BRICS Bank, we need to seek approval from IMF. It doesn't make sense at all. So this is what we need to be working with countries like Russia, like South Africa, like Brazil, and so on, to reshape. This is the way forward. The way forward is not to go and lie in front of the U.S. ambassador like whatever, and repeat U.S. propaganda. The way forward is to put on our thinking caps, think outside the box, and prepare for this major war. The war has already been unleashed.
Thank you.
A major war has been unleashed on the world by Donald Trump for the express purpose of making America great again.
Right.
And you see, sometimes we get taken in by all kinds of slogans and myths about the United States of America. This whole thing about democracy and so on. Who in the United States of America, White House or where, cares about that? I went on a trip to the United States of America, south of the United States of America. And I visited an Indian reservation.
Yeah.
An Indian reservation called Mikusuku. Now, if you go to Mikusuku, and anybody tells you about democratic rights in the United States of America and so on, you just wonder. Mikusuku is an Indian reservation. Indeed, in raw language, it is a zoo.
A zoo.
Where they keep Indians.
Oh, you've been there?
Yeah, I know. That's how they keep. I mean, they did the same thing in Australia.
It's a zoo. Mikusuku is a zoo.
All the
Indians
are
are kept in a zoo.
The indigenous people.
And
The indigenous people. When you say Indians, people think it's Indians from South Asia.
Yeah.
The indigenous people of America. They kept all the reservations.
For the Red Indians.
Yes.
Yeah.
They give them alcohol. They give them gambling, and that's it.
Really?
And they give them a food
tourists.
stamp.
It has become a tourist site where tourists are told that they are going to see Indians in their natural environment. The same language you use to describe monkeys in zoos. And then this country turns around and is giving us lectures about human rights when it is keeping Mikusuku. I mean, unbelievable. Look at the situation in the Guantanamo Bay.
Oh.
Guantanamo Bay, look at the conditions there. And this country is telling us about its commitment to human rights and so on. Abu Ghraib prison and so on. And we are lying down, they are walking all over us and kicking us left, right, and center. And then we go and issue this statement. somehow, maybe I think it's the normal procedure, which is fine. It is unsigned. There's no name to it. There's no office to it. So you can't tell. It is even possible that the minister himself may have problems with this. You understand? This may be a DEX officer.
Yes,
this may be the statement from a DEX officer. And that is why I'm going to go very soft on the political leaders of the ministry. But this statement is a useless statement. Absolutely useless statement which does not protect our interests, which does not even identify our interests. This is lying down for Uncle Trump to walk all over us.